Week number 9 kicked off on Thursday Night Football in a game where the Ravens absolutely destroyed the Miami Dolphins. In today's video, I'm going to help you either right your wrongs from Thursday Night Football or build on that lead you have by helping you guys set your lineup at the quarterback and the tight end position. We're going to be going in depth into my top 20 quarterback and tight end rankings and tiers for week number 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Before we can get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, like it owes you some money. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with the must-start quarterback ones by quarterbacks 1 and 2, Patrick Mahomes as well as Josh Allen. They're facing off up against each other this week in Buffalo. Now, Patrick Mahomes has been as consistent as it gets this season. Every single week outside of one, he has been a top 6 quarterback game in and game out. He has now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games as a top 5 quarterback, facing up against the Buffalo Bills. That could be the highest scoring game of the week. I understand that on paper, the matchup is brutal, right? The Buffalo Bills defense is the second worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. But when you are as consistent as Patrick Mahomes, I am just going to brush that under the rug, especially in a matchup that I believe is going to be a shootout. Then we got Josh Allen going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, just like the matchup for Patrick Mahomes. This is a tough one on paper for Josh Allen. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is the 4th worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, but Josh Allen is Josh Allen. You are going to start him. I understand that this year hasn't necessarily been the smoothest sailing for Josh Allen. I understand that based upon where you have drafted him, you may feel a little bit disappointed with your selection, but ultimately, we know any given week, any given Sunday, this is a guy that could finish as the quarterback 1, and in what should be the highest scoring game of the week, you are going to want him in your lineup. Now we move to tier number 2, the mid-range quarterback ones with Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Draco May, Daniel Jones, as well as Jackson Dart. Now, Dak Prescott was a guy that I really kind of brushed the matchup under the rug last week, right? I said, you know what? Going up against the Denver Broncos, it might be rough on paper, but I think that the offense of the Dallas Cowboys will be able to overcome that, and Dak Prescott goes out there and absolutely shits the bed, doesn't even score 10 fantasy points, 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs in that game. But prior to that, he was a guy that was a uber consistent top 10 starter. So going up against the Arizona Cardinals defense in what will be a bounce back game for the whole offense, the 23rd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, my trust in Dak Prescott is very high, so I believe that he will have that big bounce back game. Then we got Justin Herbert, the pervert, going up against the Tennessee Titans in 10-EC. In terms of a matchup on paper, this is the 22nd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Justin Herbert has finished as a top 3 quarterback in back-to-back games. The only real worry here would be that the LA Chargers are putting belt to ass and Justin Herbert doesn't have to throw the ball as much. But we did just see the Chargers absolutely demolish the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football, and Justin Herbert was the quarterback 3, so I'm not going to panic off of that. Then we got Draco May going up against the Atlanta Falcons. This is another tough matchup for quarterbacks, the 29th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. We did see last week Tua Tagovailoa, Tua bend them all over last week on the defensive side. The Atlanta Falcons had no answers for Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins offense. 3 straight games as a top 10 quarterback. 2 of those 3 games, he was the quarterback number 2. So again, the matchup might scare some people, and the matchups are important in fantasy football. We do like to cherry pick based on matchups, but when guys are as consistent as Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Daniel Jones, Jackson Dart, you just keep throwing them out there. Then we got Danny Dimes going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. In terms of a matchup, this is the 4th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. 3 straight games as a top 11 quarterback last week up against the Titans. 21 of 29 for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 INTs as the quarterback number 10. Daniel Jones has been as safe as it gets this season, even with Jonathan Taylor putting defenses in the sleeper hold weekly, even with Jonathan Taylor likely to probably even score just 3 touchdowns again because the guy keeps doing it in this game up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Daniel Jones will still get his, and plus Jonathan Taylor is a fine enough pass-catching running back to where one of those touchdowns could be a nice dump off to Jonathan Taylor. Daniel Jones has completely revitalized his career, rejuvenated his career. Is this Fugazi, kind of like Sam Darnold last season, where they get to the playoffs and they get absolutely smoked? Probably, maybe, but the Indianapolis Colts offensive line is incredible. The play calling from Shane Steichen has been incredible. The offense as a whole is just absolutely buzzing. So again, Daniel Jones is just a guy that you trust. Then we got Daniel Jones's former team's quarterback, Jackson Dart, Anakin Skywalker himself, going up against the San Francisco 49ers at home in MetLife. In terms of a matchup, this is the 21st ranked matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Jackson Dart did lose his right-hand man, Cam Skattebo, last week up against the Eagles in Philadelphia. But even without Skattebo for some of that game, he was the quarterback 13, quarterback 3 in back-to-back games in week 6 and week number 7. So going up against the 49ers, I get this isn't the biggest pushover defense out there. It's not like going up against the Dolphins defense, going up against the Cowboys, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, his own defense, the Giants. But at the end of the day, Jackson Dart has been an uber reliable asset for your fantasy team. So again, he deserves to be ranked this high. Then we got tier number 3, my quarterbacks 9 through 12, Matthew Stafford, Joe Flacco, Jaden Stormy Daniels, and Caleb Williams. If you're like, Nick, that doesn't make sense. There's only 8 quarterbacks on the screen. It's because Lamar Jackson was my quarterback number 3. Matthew Stafford has really been very consistent this season, which is something that I did not expect at all. Actually, I did expect him to be consistent, but I expected him to be consistently mid. And what I thought was going to happen this season was Matthew Stafford would be good enough to, if you started him, you feel fine about it. And what I mean by that is he is not going to have these humongous games, but he's going to be good enough to where if you started him, he keeps your head above water. You're not going to drown with Matthew Stafford in your lineup. You're hugging onto a buoy, right? Or you're on top of a door and you just don't let your new boyfriend onto the door, Titanic style, so that he could be sleeping with the fishes and freeze to death. So Matthew Stafford this season has been much better than that. He started off the year doing that. Quarterback 20, quarterback 19, quarterback 14, and then he was the quarterback 2, quarterback 8, 26 up against the Ravens, but that was just a really weird game. Puka Nacua gets hurt. The Ravens defense locks in. Stafford just doesn't play as well. But then he followed that up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London as the quarterback 4. So coming out the bye week with Puka Nacua up against the Saints defense that I don't think could stop me. If I was the quarterback of the team, the 16th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, I'm just going to expect Matthew Stafford to have a 5-star Michelin meal buffet, like a fucking fancy ass buffet level eat here up against the New Orleans Saints. Then we got cool Joe Flacco going up against the Chicago Bears. Joe Flacco is expected to start Sunday, barring any setbacks with his shoulder injury. They did lose up against the Jets last week in that Nick Mangold game. Beautiful win for the Jets. But Joe Flacco, quarterback 7, 6, and 15 as the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. If you compare that to the beginning of the season when he was on the Cleveland Browns, it is night and day. Joe Flacco does the smartest thing any quarterback could do, and that is just lock into his wide receiver 1 and force feed the ball to him. Joe Flacco's wide receiver 1 just so happens to be the best wide receiver in the NFL, Jamar Chase, so it works out swimmingly. Facing a Bears defense that allows the 9th most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis, Joe Flacco is banged up, so I would temper my expectations a little bit, which is just why I don't have him ranked higher than this. Now we move to Jaden Stormy Daniels going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Now I do expect the Seahawks defense to be a bit of a tough task for a guy like Jaden Daniels. They do allow the 13th most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis, but I do think that they're going to be able to get after him via blitzing him, and I think that they may turn him over potentially even multiple times. But Jaden Daniels did look good in his last game out up against the Cowboys. He's kind of been banged up all year. He's in, he's out. He missed last week up against the Chiefs, but now he gets the Seahawks. Again, on paper, it's a good matchup, and you didn't draft Jaden Daniels where you did to fucking sit him, so you're certainly going to be playing him based on what we've seen out of him this season. Then we got my final guy that is going to be a quarterback 1. That is Caleb Williams going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Caleb Williams has been on a tear of having the easiest matchups ever and somehow just fucking it all up, right? We have been talking about ever since coming out the bye week. These are like top 12 matchups for Caleb Williams. These are games where Caleb Williams should be going out there and blowing the back out of the defense, having a great game, but it just doesn't seem to compute for Caleb Williams. It just doesn't seem to go his way. Back-to-back weeks with no touchdowns and 1 INT in each game, finishing outside the top 18 in both showings. But again, the Bengals defense just hit Justin Fields with the little revive, right? Hit him with the quick revive. Call of Duty Black Ops 1, right? So while I definitely am not going to sit here and pretend like I trust Caleb Williams, I don't trust him at all. But in the 8th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, one of these days, the big game is coming. We saw it in week 6. He was the quarterback 10. We saw it back in week number 3 up against the Cowboys, where he was the quarterback 1. He has 3 top 10 finishes this year. So the upside is very clearly there. It's just, can he grab onto it? Can he hold onto it and have that big game? Now we move on into the quarterback 2 tier. Now, normally we split this up. We have like the high-end QB2s, the mid-range QB2s, the low-end quarterback 2s. But honestly, this week, I feel very similar about a lot of these guys. Very similarly, which is the word I didn't want to use because I normally pronounce it incorrectly, but I tried to give it a go right there. We got Sam Darnold, Mono Man Sam, Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, Jared Goff, Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, and Jacoby Brissett, because Kyler Murray is not going to be good to go allegedly, but he's still going to be in some packages. So like his dick's in a box, got my dick in a box. So maybe he ends up playing a little bit. Just weird reporting overall. It seemed like Kyler was going to be good to go like 3 days ago, but that's not the case. Before we talk about Mono Man Sam and the rest of the quarterbacks and then pivot to the tight ends, though, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll get a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as you play $5 in the pick'em, you receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. If you do not know how the pick'em works on Underdog, it's incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the higher or the lower. If those picks hit, you get paid on those players. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all the picks need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, Sam Darnold is another one of these guys that's just kind of a keep your head above water type of play, but we have seen some big upside this season. Quarterback 2 up against the Bucks, quarterback 9 up against the Jaguars prior to the bye week. Doesn't play the best up against the Houston Texans defense, but that's not a great matchup. And the Commanders are the 7th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. So while I'm not 100% sold on Sam Darnold being a guy that you weekly need to have in your lineup, he is a very good high-end quarterback too. Like if you are in a super flex league or 2 quarterback league and you drafted Sam Darnold super late, you are feeling fantastico about that pick. Then we got Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, going up against the Carolina Panthers. This game is at home in Lambeau, the 19th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. We just saw Josh Allen kick the teeth in of that defense last week. Now, my biggest problem with Jordan Love is he's another one of these guys that just kind of feels like he's going to finish anywhere from quarterback 20 to 13 every single week. Great year. And you're not really going to feel much because the Green Bay Packers offense doesn't need Jordan Love to ascend, to get higher, right, in order for them to win games, right? They can hand the rock to Josh Jacobs. They play great defense. So Jordan Love doesn't have to throw 2+ touchdowns to win games. Now, we've seen him have big games this season. We saw the big show last week up against the Steelers. Quarterback 1, 3 tugs, 360 passing yards like the Xbox. Week 4 up against the Cowboys. Quarterback 6, 3 touchdowns, 337 passing yards. So we know the upside is there, but ultimately up against the Panthers in a game where I expect them to be wiping the floor with him, this feels more like a high-end quarterback 2 type of finish. Then we got Jared Goff going up against the Vikings. The same exact thing I just said about Love is the same exact case about Jared Goff. They're 2 peas in a pod. Jared Goff has the skills. He has the ability to go out there and throw 4 or 5 touchdowns. He has the ability to throw for 400+ passing yards. I genuinely believe he is good enough to do that. But when you have Jahmyr Gibbs and you have David Montgomery, you do not need Jared Goff to go back there and heave the ball 40+ times to win games, especially when you're going up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings defense. And really, offense. The Vikings defense is pretty decent. They're the 20th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. But you're going up against an offense that might be tapping out early on, might be calling uncle because of the fact that JJ McCarthy isn't all that great. We just saw Carson Wentz and the Vikings flop around like a fish out of water last week. So, well, I'm not 100% just being like, oh, JJ McCarthy's a fucking bust. Up against the Lions, that is not a great matchup for him. I expect them to be up, so I expect Jared Goff to be kind of just mid. Then we got Bo Nix going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. You might be calling him Bo Picks after this one because this matchup up against the Houston Texans is, as they would say, no bueno, the worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. We just saw last week. Not a great showing for the quarterback against the Texans. The week prior to that was the Seattle Seahawks going up against them. Sam Darnold shits the bed. Bo Nix is on fire. This is a heat check game. Quarterback 6 last week. Quarterback 1 the week before it. Can he keep the heat up? He's thrown 4 touchdowns in both those games. 8 total touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. So can he keep it up? Or 8 total touchdowns, because I think there were some rushing touchdowns in there as well. But yeah, can he keep the heat up is definitely a question. This is truly a heat check matchup. Not a guy that I'm going to truly bang the drum for, but again, he's been very good, so maybe that's able to overcome the matchup. Then we got touchdown Jesus, Trevor Lawrence, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, Trevor Lawrence is a guy that it just feels disgusting to put in your lineup. Who in the right mind wants to play Trevor Lawrence in Big 2025? But prior to the bye week, even in a game where they got Cleveland steamered by the Rams, where the Rams took a big old number 2 right on their chest. Quarterback 14, quarterback 13, quarterback 5 in 3 straight games. I'm still very wary of Trevor Lawrence. I still think that Trevor Lawrence isn't even all that good, but if he keeps scoring fantasy points, he's going to keep attracting me, to rank him as a start-worthy asset. Then we got Mystic Mac Jones, no Brock Purdy for the millionth game in a row. Mac Jones, again, struggled against the Texans, but he was fine. He was the quarterback number 14. Just struggled the week prior to that as well, up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now he goes up against a Giants defense that allows the 5th most points to quarterbacks on a per-game basis. Now, he still doesn't have Ricky Pearsall, because he is just eternally hurt. Brandon Ayuk, we'll see how that ends up going once he's back. But Mac Jones has been fine, right? I understand that stretch from week 6, week 7, where he's the quarterback 22, 25 is bad. But other than that, he seems like a fine quarterback 2 option. I really like the matchup, but again, with all the injuries and with the fact that Christian McCaffrey will probably just score 50 points in this game because he scored like 9 points last week, I do think that lowers my expectations of Mac Jones a little bit. Then we got Jacoby Brissett going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Now, the fact that they said they might use some Kyler Murray maybe tells me that they take Brissett out and have Kyler run some crazy things. I don't know if that's what's going to actually happen, but anytime you go up against the Dallas Cowboys, I've talked about this every single week of the season, but this is the one where you call up your wife, you tell her, baby, we're going to be rich. We get to go up against the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be our big break. This is going to be the game where it gets me paid for a future, right? This is the kind of game that I'll have Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback in the NFL for the next 15 fucking seasons, because it really is that easy. Back-to-back games as a top 12 quarterback. Now, I am a Jacoby Brissett kind of hater. I really don't think Jacoby Brissett is all that good, but the proof is in the pudding. Back-to-back games as the starter, as a top 12 quarterback, in the best matchup for quarterbacks. While I don't trust the guy worth jack shit, I do think he should be in your lineups if you're down bad and you got to start him. Now we move to the tight end position here with my high and tight end ones. These are guys that we're going to talk about very quickly. You don't even have to think too much about it. You've got them on your team. You already knew you are going to play them. Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese, Jake Fergalicious Ferguson, Brock Bowers, George Kittle Meat Timbers, and Aronde Gadsden. Tyler Warren going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, in terms of a matchup, this is the second best matchup for tight ends. Tyler Warren, one of the best. You might argue he is, maybe a top 3 tight end in the NFL at this point. As a rookie, he has put up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games as a top 12 tight end. In a great matchup, you feel great about him. Then we got Trey McBride going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Jacoby Brissett and Trey McBride are two peas in a pod. Back-to-back games as a top 2 tight end. Back-to-back weeks with at least 1 touchdown, 3 total touchdowns over that stretch. Now, I was someone all summer preaching to the choir that Trey McBride is allergic to the end zone. He gets close to the end zone, he starts sneezing, and he needs some fucking immunization from his allergicness to the end zone. But it just appears that, Kyler Murray, the midget fuck, can't see him in the end zone or something because Trey McBride is on fire NBA Jam style with Jacoby Brissett. He's got Jacoby Brissett. He's going up against a Cowboys defense that, to me, doesn't really strike fear into my mind in terms of tight ends. The 19th best matchup, you're definitely playing Trey McBride. Then we got Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese, who might be the best tight end in the National Football League. 3 straight games as a top 10 tight end. In that stretch of games, he scored 4 total touchdowns, 2 tugs last week like he was Deshaun Watson out of massage parlor. 7 receptions on 9 targets for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns to the tight end 1. Back-to-back weeks with 9+ targets. His targets bounce all around, which is definitely suspect. But back-to-back games with 9+ tight ends, it appears that Jordan Love absolutely loves Mr. Tucker Kraft, and this is the 8th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. Then we got Jake Ferguson. Now, if you played Jake Ferguson last week, National Tight End Day, whip out the red carpet for Jake Ferguson. So consistent with CeeDee Lamb, without CeeDee Lamb. It doesn't matter, man. Jake Ferguson's going to have a great game up against the Denver Broncos. 1 target, 0 receptions, 0 fucking fantasy points as the tight end 55. After weeks 2 through week 7, every single game, he was a top 12 tight end. And every single game outside of 1, he was a top 5 tight end. So him completely just blowing your team up from the inside, sleeper agent, absolutely sucked. But I just project that, hey, Dak will look better. The offense will look better. 7th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. You're not panicking after 1 down game. Then we got George Kittle, the founder of National Tight End Day. I lied. The next guy's Brock Bowers. We, zoomed past him because, Brock Bowers just hasn't been on my mind in a while. Brock Bowers has missed week 5. He missed week 6. He missed week 7. He was on bye in week 8, but now he's back in week number 9 up against the Jaguars with the knee injury. He suffered the knee injury in week 1. He plays weeks 2, week 3, week 4. And if you had him in weeks 2, week 3, week 4, you're like, oh my God, why did I draft this guy? Why did I draft this guy? Why did I draft him in the fucking 2nd or the 3rd round for him to be the tight end 13, right? Why did I do that? But week 1, when he was actually healthy, 5 receptions, 8 targets, 103 yards as the tight end 2. I get the Las Vegas Raiders offense is dysfunctional. I get Geno Smith is blinder than a bat. He needs to use echolocation to find Brock Bowers. But even with that guy being a complete and utter unmitigated disaster, you aren't sitting Brock Bowers, who now will be the most healthy he's been since week number 1. The 14th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. I get the Raiders stink so bad you can smell it through the screen, but I'm not sitting Mr. Brock Bowers. Then we got George Kittle, the originator of National Tight End Day. Scores a touchdown on National Tight End Day, 4 of 5 for 43 yards and a tug as the tight end number 8. He now faces a Giants defense that allows the 17th most points to tight ends on a per-game basis. I know George Kittle absolutely blanked donut in week number 7, but in week 8 he bounced back. I'm not sure how consistent the targets will be, but I do know one thing, though. Women, they come, they go. Saturday through Sunday, Monday. George Kittle needs to be in your lineup. So George Kittle got to be in there. In there like swimwear. Then we got Aaron Gadsden II, Dolphins legend son, going up against the Tennessee Titans. Back-to-back games as a top 3 tight end. 3 games in a row inside the top 13. I do worry about the fact that the LA Chargers have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, right? And it might be a little too hot for Aaron Gadsden at some point, but it appears that Justin Herbert, the pervert, loves Gadsden. He keeps feeding him the rock, so even in the 25th best matchup for tight ends, when a guy is playing as well as Gadsden has been, you got to keep rocking with him. Now we move to the low-end tight end ones. Travis Kelce, Mr. Swift, Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, and Zach Ertz. Now, Travis Kelce, despite handing the ball straight to the Washington Commanders earlier on in the game by just letting it bounce off his hands, fly up, the defender snags it. He still scores a tug in that game, tight end 2, 6 of 8 for 99 yards and a touchdown as the tight end 2. Going up against the Buffalo Bills again, I expect this to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. I get, in terms of matchup, this is the second worst matchup for tight ends. I don't give a damn. I think Travis Kelce still gets it done. Then we got Kyle Pitts going up against the New England Patriots in New England. Despite the fact that the Atlanta Falcons got absolutely face-fucked by the Dolphins last week, Kyle Pitts was the sole bright spot in this offense. Darnell Mooney did nothing. Bijan Robinson was looking like prime CH back there. 9 of 9 for 59 yards with Kirk Cousins. We know that Michael Penix loves him some Kyle Pitts. Going up against the Patriots, they should be playing from the back. How you like that? In the 6th best matchup for tight ends, I love Kyle Pitts this week as a high-end tight end too. Then we got Dalton Kincaid going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Dalton Kincaid did return from injury last week, and they kind of used the just the tip approach. And what I mean by this is they didn't fully, go balls deep in there with Dalton Kincaid. They kind of eased him in. He played just 22% of the snaps last week in honor of Taylor Swift, who will probably be in the game. Yeah, she plays wide receiver for the Chiefs. So with me expecting his snaps to increase, he should get more than 3 targets. Again, this is going to be a high-scoring game. Good likelihood that a guy like Dalton Kincaid could score in this spot. Then we got Sam Laporta going up against the Minnesota Vikings at home in Detroit. Sam Laporta is as hit or miss as it gets. Tight end 32 prior to the bye, tight end 4 and tight end 4 in the prior 2 games. This is an offense that, again, can explode at any point. This is an offense that I wouldn't be sure. They could score 50 points against the Vikings, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. But all those points could just go to Amon-Ra, go to Jahmyr Gibbs, go to David Montgomery, and Sam Laporta sitting there like a cuck with his schmeckle in his hand in the corner. So while I do like Sam Laporta a ton, and you're going to play him, you just can't feel as good as you would prior to the season about Sam Laporta. Then we got Zach Ertz. Now, Zach Ertz has been very good with Jaden Daniels, very bad without Jaden Daniels last week. No Jaden Daniels, tight end 23, right? So not assuming, because assumptions make an ass out of you and me, right? We already know that Jaden Daniels is going to be back. So going up against the Seattle Seahawks defense that allows the 9th most points to tight ends on a per game basis, with Jaden Daniels back, no Terry McLaurin. This is a recipe for great success. Shout out to Borat in this spot. Now we move to tier number 3, the tight end 2 range, the startable tight end 2. What I mean by that is if you have to start one of these guys, feel okay about it, right? Once you get deeper than this, it's gross. Now, Mark Andrews was in this range. That was going to be a wrong take. I had Mark Andrews as my tight end 13. He'll probably be a top 5-ish tight end. 2 tugs, obviously, up against the Dolphins. They could not stop him. Theo Johnson, Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, Dalton Schultz, and Noah Fant. Going up against the 49ers for Theo Johnson, another guy that's just touchdown or bust. I could just as easily see him scoring 18 points as I could see him scoring maybe just 0 fantasy points. I think that's in the range of outcomes. Not a great matchup for tight ends, the 23rd best matchup, but Jackson Dart does love throwing him the rock in the red zone. Then we got Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram, to me, feels pretty safe, right? He kind of just feels like you're waving the white flag, right? You're saying, hey, I'm going to get 8 to 10, 8 to 11 fantasy points, and I'm feeling okay about it, right? If you are fine just acknowledging, hey, my tight ends aren't the best, I got to pick a guy up off the waiver wire, Evan Ingram is fine for that, right? There's a Broncos offense that could be percolating, could drop their elbow on any defense, but this is the 28th best matchup for tight ends. This is a bad matchup for quarterbacks, so this kind of just feels like an okay game out of Evan Ingram. Then we got Hunter Henry going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Hunter Henry, another guy that's been just all over the place. His targets are as unreliable as it gets. We've seen a game with him getting 11 targets back in week 3. Last week, he had just 1 target, 1 reception, 7 yards, and a tug up against the Cleveland Browns. Going up against a Falcons defense that's the worst matchup for tight ends. The reason why you play him is because you believe in Drake May, you believe in the Patriots offense that could have Hunter Henry scoring multiple touchdowns. Then we move to Dalton Schultz, who currently has the Q tag next to him, meaning he is questionable. He is dealing with the knee and shoulder, head, shoulder, knees and toes, but he doesn't have the head. He has the shoulders, the knees, but not the toe. Not the toe with a head injury. Listed as questionable up against the Denver Broncos on Sunday. Schultz was starting to pick up some steam. It was starting to feel like, okay, Schultz has some upside. He's kind of like a safer, a more upside version of Evan Ingram. But then last week, if you played him up against the 49ers, he kicked you right in the gonads. In terms of a matchup up against the Denver Broncos, this is the 24th best matchup for tight ends. If he plays, seems like CJ Stroud's going to be playing better, and their offensive line kind of sucks, so Schultz is kind of just a safety net for him. Final guy in this tier is Noah Fant going up against the Chicago Bears. Now, Noah Fant has started to look a lot better with Joe Flacco under center. The problem is when you have Jamar Chase, Noah Fant probably will cap at like 5 targets maximum. And I think he's probably more likely to get like 3 or 4. This is a great matchup, though, up against the Bears, the 12th best matchup. So maybe this is the week he dips his toes inside the end zone. Final tier here, tier number 4, the YOLO tight end 2s, Juwan Johnson, TJ Hawkinson, and AJ Barner. Juwan Johnson has been very good in back-to-back weeks. Now, I don't think that going from Spencer Rattler to Tyler Shuck is going to implode this offense, but I also don't think that this is like the jump start. This is going to be the fixer of all things, right? You're going to get Tim the Tool Man over here, and it's going to fix everything, right? I don't think so. I do not think so. I don't think that's what Tyler Shuck is. 5 of 8 for 53 yards last week up against the Bucs. Going up against the Rams defense that's ranks 22nd for tight ends. I don't know if having 2 okay games really mitigates what weeks 4 through 6 were, where he scored like 4 or 6 fantasy points every single week. So while I like Juwan Johnson, I just don't want to rank him higher than this because I don't want your heart to get broken if he shits the bed, which I think is plausible. Then we got TJ Hawkinson. Now, with JJ McCarthy, TJ Hawkinson was the tight end 31 and the tight end 42. That was without Jordan Addison in the lineup. Now you got Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and the running backs. That's scary. That is very, 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 very scary when I do not trust JJ McCarthy. Now, this is the mid-range matchup, the 18th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. So, can TJ Hawkinson have a great game? Of course he can. Of course he can. But what from this season with JJ McCarthy will tell you that he will. Then we got AJ Barner going up against the Washington Commanders in Washington. I am a big fan of AJ Barner. The biggest problem, though, is the targets are not reliable. 3 targets, 7 targets, 3 targets, 1 target, 3 target, 2 target. Maybe it is consistent. It's 3, right? But we've seen him score 2 touchdowns in games. We've seen him score 8 touchdowns in games. We've seen him get 3 receptions for 71 yards. So the skill is very clearly there. It's just they don't really go all the way in with him for me to rank him higher. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, like it owes some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Join the stream tomorrow, Sunday at around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you long time, as always. Good boy!